need absolutely no introduction. Please welcome the Pulitzer Prize-winning author, Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee, and India's best-known journalist, Collab. The New York Times had this to say about Siddharth's book. Of all the sciences, biology is the most lawless. Now, we have become fluent enough in its language, not only to understand what laws there are, but also to draft new ones. It is a familiar narrative with a big difference. Thanks to Dr. Mukherjee's remarkably clear and compelling prose, the reader has a fighting chance of arriving at the story of today's genetic manipulations with an actual understanding of the immensely complicated science and the even more complicated moral questions. The book opened at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, and Siddharth's last book, The Emperor of All Maladies, was described by Time magazine as one of the most important books of the last century. Siddharth will be in conversation with Barkha and will also read from his brilliant new book, The Gene, An Intimate History. Please give them a big hand. It's one of the most extraordinary books that I have ever read or published, and it's also been one of the most talked about books of the year around the world. I'm now going to ask Siddharth and Barkha to unwrap copies of the book so that our photographers can take a picture. Barkha, Siddharth. Yeah. Before we start, can I ask you to please turn off your mobile phones so that the audience can enjoy the evening without any disturbance? Also, Siddharth will not be signing copies of the book after the event. However, there are pre-signed copies available outside. And the discussion will be followed by audience questions. Thank you so much for coming, and I'm going to now hand it over to you both to start the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Meru. Are you all able to hear me?
No.
Yes or no?
Yes.
No, you need to grab that one.
And I'm not. Okay, very good. Thank
I
you.
hope I know how to do more than turn on a mic, but okay. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think what's the book? Many of you have heard about this book. Many of you have questions about it. I did interview Siddharth last night for television, and it was actually astounding to me when I did this interview. I thought that this was going to be one of those esoteric niche things that only I was interested in, and I was just staggered by the kind of feedback that we got, and it made me realize that there are several universal and existential questions that this extraordinary book actually throws up, and that's why people can relate to it or want to know more or are hungry to know more. And of course, the most basic of all questions is why we are who we are. Are we genetically preordained to be the way we are? Could we change it? And one of the questions that Siddharth asks in his book is that if we could change it, should we change it? And to what extent should that sort of genetic engineering be allowed an unfettered journey ahead? For those of you who haven't read it, I don't want to give away too much, but there are chilling recounting of an age that we sometimes forget, but we should never forget, of the Nazi age, of Hitler's dream to create a perfect race. If you reapplied that to the age we live in, and you allowed this sort of exhilarating medical sort of frontier busting, free movement without thinking, could you be playing to new prejudices of racism and sexism? Could you be creating new Hitlers? On the other hand, there is the power of this to release us from extraordinary suffering. So really, it speaks to the roots of who we are and who we could be. And Siddharth, what makes it so compelling, apart from the beautiful way in which it's written and researched, is that this is personal to you. This, in some ways, is about your family. This is in some ways